Ready? Okay, here we go. Page 15. What is the terrain of comedy? What is the slant of light, the curving of space that identifies it? One might attempt to visualize it, though the actual image remains circled elusive. Elusive means hard to see or find. What does elusive mean, Colby? You have no idea. What does elusive mean? It's hard to see how you're going to pass this test. All right. I got bars today, I'm telling you. Revealing itself only to an interior sense. But the intuition of place is unmistakable, and perhaps only a metaphor can do justice to it. Highlight. The image has the largesse, the room of a land, a terrain. There is darkness in that land, we might begin by saying, but in its mellow atmosphere, shadows move before the protagonist and shorten in the course of the day. Stop. So here she's going to give an image of life being a path. Okay? So if you imagine like the path that you're on, has it always been easy walking or easy hiking? No, sometimes, right? Sometimes it's real easy. Sometimes the path is easy, but sometimes there's a big boulder in your path and you have to climb it, right? So you have to climb it so you can keep going. And this is kind of how she's describing comedy, is that it's a path. It says the path cutting through the hills and valleys, crossing the wide plains, and winding upward in a gentle slope is one that various characters trudge upon for only partially completed journeys. So what she means by that is that we see, like Christopher, we meet him when he's 15 years old, right? He's 15 years, 11 months, and 6 days or something, right? I can't remember, but he gives his exact age in the book. So we meet Christopher for about 6 months. So we see that part of his path, and that's what she's talking about. That we see various characters for partially complete journeys, stopping along the way for retreats in woods or caves, or gathering together at intervals for festivity. Homer, Aristophanes, Dante, Chaucer, and Shakespeare have given us specific metaphors for this constant image. Highlight. But the geography of this terrain informs all comedy, whether dark and bitter or full of mirth and delight, whatever the local territory or temporal code. Stop. It informs each genuine work of comedic art not as a map or an outline would do, but as an image. The image is complex, containing an order and an interplay of values which in each comedy must be worked out by mutual accommodation. The comic terrain, then, is a figure of the permanent laws of being as seen under a single aspect, a governing figure that provides the most humble comedy with its power. Highlight. It is a correlative for the hope, and then finally one realizes the experience of being loved, of being cared for, cared about, and guarded and showered with tender mercies. Stop. If the high peak of lyric is insight into knowing and loving, then the corresponding high point of comedy lies not in knowing, but in being shown, being led into the harmony of the cosmos to receive better than one deserves. Not revelation then, but receptivity leads to its summit, its permitted high vista. In other words, so let's say you're on that path of life and you do encounter this metaphorical boulder, you might need some help. You might need someone to give you a little boost, right? To be your cheerleader holder. What's it called in cheer when you to be your base, to hold you up so you can rise up. Do you deserve that sometimes? Sometimes you don't. Sometimes you do, which is why sometimes bad things happen to good people and vice versa. But that's just life, and that's how she's trying to explain it here. What are the laws and customs of comedy, of its land, acknowledged even by those who flout them? Well, flout means to be like poo-poo, like, oh, I don't need all that. I don't need any help. I can pull myself up by my own bootstraps. Its supreme law, of course, is love. Its concern is with physis, which is the flow of being that animates and connects all things. Highlight. Comedy takes place in a fallen world. It begins in established disorder, usually with an old regime in control, where people have lived by law, by reason, or by custom, neglecting wholeness, pleasure, and love. It moves toward the recapturing of those qualities by ingenuity and audacity. Stop. Circle ingenuity. What do you think that means? Look at the word, the three, 4 letters in the middle. G-E-N-U-I. What's that sound like?
Genius.
Genius. So ingenuity is genius-like. Genius-like. And then circle audacity. It means to dare to be bold. Some of you are very audacious as you sit in here and say weird, funny things. Audacious means to dare to be bold. Like, look at that Spurs flag over there. Like, that's kind of the motto of Tottenham Hotspur. To dare is to do, to dare to be bold, to do things that nobody else will do. What'd you say? It's a soccer team in London.
I think it's my backpack. My bag's
They could be better, but they're in a growth process right now. Highlights. It may resort to the fantastic in order to effect a needed break, top of 16, with routine, and it pulls others along with it in a creative recapturing of community with friends and helpers, serving as guardians and counselors. Its justice is mercy and forgiveness. Its supreme fiction is the journey of the soul. Its virtues, faith, hope, and charity. Its vices, the 7 deadly sins. Its mode of action is deception and delay, since if fortune and not fate is to be the governing authority, one must do whatever is necessary to stave off the ultimate fatal defeat. Stop. What is the ultimate fatal defeat?
Death.
Yes. D-E-A-T-H, death, death, death. Life must go on at any cost, since in comedy life can blossom again, even out of, stop talking. I'm the only funny one in the room. Even out of impossibility if only the final unthinkable event, death, does not occur. Life, the elan vital, so the most important thing, is far more important than established morality, since the very continuance of the species is in question. Highlight. In the end, however, the comic seeks to reestablish morality and reanimate the life of moral and spiritual forms. Stop. In other words, sometimes you have to do immoral things to keep going with your life. Like, you have to steal bread to feed your kids. Well, stealing is supposedly immoral, right? But what if you have to steal a loaf of bread because your kids are starving? Well, I mean, you have to basically do anything that you can do to stave off the ultimate fatal defeat. And so hopefully after you've stolen the bread and you feed your kids, hopefully life gets better for you and you don't have to steal anymore. However, you know that some people use that as a justification. Oh, I needed to steal that watch because I have this date tonight and I wanted to look good. So I stole the watch. That's not the same thing as stealing bread, right? So that's the gray area that we've talked about before. That life can't just be looked at in black and white. But you've heard people justify doing bad things it's called rationalization, right? They rationalize the things they do and they think that they need to do it because something. Well, unless it's done, according to Dr. Cowan, in support of your own life, like literally staying alive, then should you be doing it? So you're going to find that when we read Midsummer Night's Dream, it opens, just like she talks about, it takes place in a fallen world where the old people are in control. Okay? And then what happens is that they have to escape the old regime to literally stay alive. And we'll find that out here shortly.
Yeah, that's what I was going to
Yeah,
say.
like that too. The terrain of comedy is in fine an image of the world as organic rather than mechanic, as living, interrelating, aspiring, growing, and healing. It's a vision of matter participating in spirit, of grace permeating nature, of the body being lifted up like Bottom, who's our character in Midsummer Night's Dream, in an overwhelming and irrational joy. The authors of the essays in this book that I'm holding right here that you don't have would conceive of this comic territory, I think, as having, like Gaul, a tripartite division, and would see each comedy as positioned chiefly in one of the three regions. They would agree that comedy represents one of the major spatializations of reality in which literature is capable, would not limit its presence to drama, and would view individual examples of comedy as representations of an order in reality, images of which may recur throughout history without need of direct influence between writers. And finally, these critics might agree, though I'm making perhaps an ungrounded assumption here, that the action of all comedy possesses that, circle, polysemousness, that Dante attributed to his Commedia, that if we translate the medieval exegetic schema into our own terms, archetypally, let's go back to polysemousness. It means many definitions. And then circle exegetic, it means critical explanation of a text. Explanation of a text. Right under Dante, exegetic. So, when you guys wrote your essay over The Water Dancer, when you wrote it over Death and the King's Horseman, you were performing exegesis. Fancy name for literary analysis, basically. Critically examining a text. Highlight. The comic action, the line right under exegetic. The comic action is the psyche moving out of stasis into the rhythm of the life force. Culturally, it is the flexibility of the community prevailing over rigid and oppressive custom. Psychologically, it is the heart finding its right order, its abundance in love. And anagogically, it's the soul's participation through the komos, which is the Greek word for marriage feast, in universal blessedness. Stop. But though there lies behind these essays a more or less shared theory of comedy, the essays themselves are in general exercises in practical rather than theoretical criticism. That is, they examine specific comic elements or themes and specific comic literary works or groups of works. They make no attempt at completeness. What the essays do, however, is to circle adumbrate the comic terrain. It means to describe.
So describe or just describe?
Either. The two is already there before adumbrate, but to describe. The comic terrain. They show it as a world in which people must keep going, must endure, as they show that if they do keep going, whether in hope or desperation, they finally, so to speak, catch the bus. Highlights, catch the bus. And then stop highlighting. When they have caught the bus, even if they've fallen and skinned their knees and made fools of themselves in the process, they are surely on the bus and going with it to its destination as if they had arrived a couple hours before departure and decorously avail themselves of the best possible seats. The point of arrival is the same, and, at least for those comedies that take us the whole distance or even imply it, the end is nothing short of joy, transcendence, and love. Okay, you've all caught a bus before, right? You've all been on a sports bus or a band bus or something, right? So, are you the person who gets there like an hour early or half an hour early and you get the best seat and you find a place to put all your stuff? Or are you the person who like is running to the bus, you fall down, you skin your knees, but the doors are just barely closing and you shove your arm in there. It's like the elevator that's just closing. You shove your arm in there and you're like, I'm here. And the coach is like, we've outleft you. And you're like, I know, but I'm here. So that's what she means. Like, she means it doesn't matter if you were first on the bus. In fact, the class, the valedictorian from the class of 2018, I taught AP English that year, AP English 4. And I had the 5 of the top 10 in just one class period. It was amazing. These people are so smart. But she was saying, can you help me write my valedictorian speech? And I was like, sure. She's kind of a shy person, so she's like, I'm thinking about using Dr. Cowan. And I'm like, how about the bus metaphor, the bus image? And so when she got up and gave her speech, she said, so I was the first person on the bus.
Wait, was it this year?
No, it was 18.
Wait, we do that.
She goes, so I was the first person on the bus, and there's someone out there who was the last person on the bus. She said, but we're all on this bus, and we've finished our ride, and we're going somewhere else. But we all got on this bus, and we finished where we were going. I thought that was perfect, isn't it?
That is really cute.
Because it's true. Like she's going to a different place, and the last person is going to a different place, but they've all graduated. So I thought that was really a good way to use. I get goosebumps thinking about it.
Good way to go out with that.
I thought that was a good way to give a valedictorian speech. All right, we're done with that.